Father Roy Bourgeois once said, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall never be unemployed." And keeping that in mind, Marquette University High School has been employed since November of 2003, which was when I first traveled to the School of the Americas protest in Fort Benning, Georgia. The protest trips of 2004 and 2005 brought more students from Marquette High to Fort Benning, and considering that 2006 was senior year for many of us, we decided that we should document our experience. So I brought my video camera to record our journey. Our story is what follows.
Yes, I'm the director of this film.
Hey Joe, what's fucking going on here, eh? Huh? Hey?
We're gonna have to edit the language later.
Oh, we will.
We began our journey at Cross Church in Milwaukee. We gathered and loaded up onto the buses that had been organized by Peace Action Wisconsin.
Victory!
And our journey begins.
We were all very excited that Thursday night, and we focused our energy on making friends, telling jokes, and keeping up a positive feeling. Mike, get in that picture with him. Come on.
Joe, can
Get right next to him.
picture taken by the Russian country flag.
Country pride. Do your country faces. First person shooter.
This is good for 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
The South is getting to me day one. Day one. I don't know how much more of the South I can take.
We're not even in the South.
Check me off.
White South. Not to mention beef jerky.
Oh, yeah. As the night wore on, people grew tired and drifted off to sleep. I eventually used the quiet time to reflect on what the School of the Americas is and why we were going on the protest. The School of the Americas opened in Panama in 1946, and in 1984 it was relocated to Fort Benning, Georgia, and it is still there today. The school was opened with the intention to combat communism in Latin America. However, since the communist threat has evaporated and no major declared war between Latin American countries has occurred in decades, why does the School of the Americas remain open? Father Roy Bourgeois explains.
Most of the courses revolve around what they call counterinsurgency warfare. Who are the insurgents? We have to ask that question. They are the poor. They are the people in Latin America who call for reform. They are the landless peasants who are hungry. They are healthcare workers, human rights advocates, labor organizers. They become the insurgents. They are seen as el enemigo, the enemy. And they are those who become the targets of those who learn their lessons at the School of the Americas.
In 1980, Archbishop Oscar Romero made a powerful speech calling on the military of El Salvador to end its oppression of its own people.
Yo quisiera hacer un llamamiento de manera especial a los
I would like
hombres
to
del
make an
ejército.
appeal in a special way to the men of the Army.
En nombre de Dios,
In the
pues,
name of God,
y en nombre de
in the
este
name
sufrido
of the
pueblo,
suffering people whose laments rise to the heaven each day more tumultuous, I beg you, I ask you, I order you, in the name of God, stop the repression.
He was assassinated the very next day while celebrating Mass. In 1993, a declassified cable showed that Romero's murder had been organized by Roberto d'Aubusson, a graduate of the School of the Americas. D'Aubusson was the organizer of many death squads and was notorious for torturing political prisoners with a blowtorch. On December 4th, 1980, an unmarked grave was found in El Salvador. It held the bodies of 4 women. They were Mary Nell sisters Mara Clark and Ada Ford, Ursuline sister Dorothy Kazel, and lay missionary Jean Donovan. 3 of the 5 officers cited as directly responsible for the rape and murder of these women were graduates of the School of the Americas. In the 1980s, the notorious Atacatal Battalion and other parts of the El Salvadoran military were trained at the School of the Americas to combat a civil war on the citizens of El Salvador. December 11th, 1981 marks the day of the El Mozote massacre.
There were soldiers on both sides. Then they moved away to see the women kneeling down on the ground to pray. They killed all of them. Not a single one of them survived. Just me by the grace of God. I hid under a tree. When I heard the screams of the children, and I knew which ones were mine, they were crying, "Mommy, they're killing us."
Over 900 men, women, and children were murdered. Of the 143 identified bodies, 131 were children under the age of 12, including 3 infants under the age of 3 months. 10 of the 12 officers cited as directly responsible were graduates of the School of the Americas. On November 16, 1989, 6 Jesuit priests, their housekeeper, and her 15-year-old daughter were slaughtered by the Atacatal Battalion in El Salvador. The priests were remembered for their advocacy of peace and human rights and for their dedicated pastoral work. 19 of the officers cited as responsible were graduates of the School of the Americas. In 1993, Representative Joseph Kennedy introduced an amendment to the Defense Department budget that was aimed at closing the School of the Americas. This was the first time that the school had ever been debated by Congress.
My amendment would reduce the Army Operation and Maintenance account by $2.9 million, the amount dedicated to running the Army School of the Americas at Fort Benning, Georgia. The intent of this amendment is to close the school.
If people around the country hear about this and write their congressman, we can win. This is an issue that we can win on.
In 2000, the School of the Americas was officially closed. However, it reopened only 1 month later with a new alias, the Western Hemisphere Institute for Security and Cooperation. Within months of its reopening, Representative Jim McGovern introduced H.R. 1810, a bill aimed at closing the school. Representative McGovern introduced similar bills in 2003, 2005, and 2006, each gaining more and more support. The bill in 2006 failed by only 15 votes. In 1996, the United States Pentagon was forced to release SOA training manuals. Numerous passages encouraged torture, extortion, and, quote, neutralizing. In addition, the manuals were permeated with contempt for law and democracy.
It's 7:15 in the morning.
7:15 in the morning, after a terrible night's sleep. God-awful night's sleep, but
Pretty bad.
the first good deed of our crew, returning a movie we found to the Hollywood Video.
Sure as shit, boy. It could have been tossed in the dumpster.
Could have been tossed in the dumpster. Where the hell do we put it?
Have you ever been to Hollywood Video? Then we get to the coach.
Yeah! Oh man, it smells like toxic fumes over here. I'm a special person. Now let's go spy out.
We have more than watching.
That hell of a lot out here. There's McDonald's. The room's not all that interesting. That Friday evening was the night of the Ignatian Family Teach-In, a ceremony that gave speakers an opportunity to share stories
ago in Guatemala, who had a burn on her arm right here from a cigar because she was raped repeatedly by soldiers who put their cigar out on her arm. She watched her young son and husband killed in front of her.
Offer insight.
Always about meeting real people, and we see their suffering, and we're transformed because we go, I cannot stand neutral in the face of this suffering. I must do my little part, and it is a little part. Finally, justice always has a face. Passion for justice always has real people behind it. And I know of no other way to act and to live than to deal with real people.
And even perform music. Father Roy closed the evening with a speech.
I do believe that our coming together this weekend, as we're doing, is something very sacred. It's sacred because we are here in the name of peace. We are here to try as best we can in humble ways to connect our voices, our energy, our prayers, our gifts to sisters and brothers of Latin America who have been the victims of our country's foreign policy in a school just down the road from us.
Now we're crossing the border.
You're like, oh, there's the river. There's the hill I rolled down.
Into Alabama. After the Ignatian Family Teach-In, a few of us decided to cross state lines to find ourselves a bona fide Alabama barbecue dinner.
So here we are at the border between Georgia and Alabama. The Ignatian Family Teach-In is in the conference center to our left, and Georgia's to our right.
That expulsion isn't working.
Keep going! Now come back up.
Like, even if you think it's going to be goofy tomorrow, you're just totally overtaken.
Squad car.
Nothing's going to be goofy. Today is a good spirited rally. You got music, you've got culture here.
Light it on fire.
Do you see a camera on there? Video camera?
You can have it, man. People want it.
No, so I'd zoom in on it. Alright, we're going in.
We're going in.
Inside.
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 Yeah, Wisconsin.
On the right side from where we are. What time is it?
Behind 3 fences.
Oh my god. I just realized this. Going over this
Let me just say we are filled with new hope as we gather here today in our largest demonstration ever. We're not going away. We are going to continue to gather here if it's necessary to call for the closing of this school and for a change in our country's foreign policy.
The School of the Americas protest is often labeled as anti-military because we hold our rally at the gates of a military base. However, it is important to remember that we are not protesting the United States Army, but rather the unethical practice of training Latin American militants who use their training to commit acts of terrorism on their own people. We support our troops and we want them out of harm's way. And we also honor our veterans, many of whom join our rallies every year.
Can't stop the rock.
Alright, we are entering Sunday morning, bright and early. Police are awake and doing their job. They probably won't want to talk to us, but that's okay. Morning, officer. Continue on in. Talk, Mike.
Alright, my cross represents Pablo Emilio Gomez, who was massacred in the Segovia Massacre of Colombia. And I'm proud to bear his name today. Powerful experience.
Alright, my cross is, can't see me, but my cross is Dominigo Claros, age 29. He was a woodcutter.
Wait a second.
Not sure what country. What was your cross, Jack?
Cross is Agustina Martinez.
Age 30, I see.
My name is Rick Relson. I'm a Jesuit and former teacher at Marquette High School with Joe Kay. Had him in freshman theology class, so thanks for the chance to speak a bit of my experience, Joe. I hold the cross of Padre Joaquin Lopez y Lopez, a Jesuit from El Salvador who was killed in 1989 on November 16th. by members of graduates of the School of the Americas. At Marquette High School there is a picture, and in that picture, in the shape of a cross, are the photos of the 6 Jesuit martyrs and their housekeeper and daughter. And one day, walking back from Eucharistic Adoration, the Hour of Power, about 3 years ago, I had this experience where the martyrs called to me and said, "Come be with me. Come be with me." Well, this past Thursday night, we had a liturgy at the Jesuit School of Theology, where I attend school for theology studies. And during that liturgy at the end, there I was with the martyrs in prayer, remembering on their anniversary 17 years later, remembering their lives, their commitment to the church, to the poor. And I was with them, and they were rejoicing. They were rejoicing. And they were saying, "We are alive." And a martyr, here's my Greek, the martyr is one who witnesses. And the martyrs of El Salvador have invited me to be witness. I invited you to be witness. I invited all of us to be witness to a God of love, a God of peace, a God who does not make distinctions between friend and enemy, a God who does not make distinctions between the just and the unjust, a God who enters into humanity, giving God's self fully for our life. And we indeed are alive. And we carry on the life of those who have gone before us, and we continue the life and celebrate the life of all who still live, because we do not walk alone. And it's with great gratitude and it's with humility that I stand here with Padre Lolo, with the Marquette High community who's represented here, and with the Jesuit School of Theology, among all those from basically this entire hemisphere, Western Hemisphere, in hopes to close the Western Hemisphere Institute for Security Cooperation.
3 million are home. Over 2 million people are in prison, while the government spends billions on war. We cry. No more, we must stop this dirty war. Don't come near us, don't come near us, we cry out. You must know.
The sole purpose of this installation is to provide for the military training of soldiers. This policy is completely consistent with the American constitutional tradition that the military must remain politically neutral and under the control of a democratically elected civilian government.
Estanislao Díaz, 65 años de edad. Presente.
Daughter of Domingo Claros, María Dolores Amaya Claros, 5 years old.
Presente. Armen Claros, 18 años de edad.
Child, 20 days old. Daughter of Angelina Claros, 15 years old.
Amparo Márquez, hijita de Margarita Márquez, 4 años de edad.
María Kopma, 7 años de edad. Daughter of Leonicia Claros y Pea Bien Luna, 5 años de edad. Rafael Guetamilla,
Roberto Rico Pérez, 42 años de edad. Presente. María Arias. Presente. Danilo Anderson, presente. Rodolfo Machado Calderón, 21 años de edad.
From our Canadian brothers and sisters, shut down the SOA.
And Free Palestine too.
And Free Palestine as well.
We're gonna party, come on. Nothing more than Reeboks on your feet. Can you dig it? Yeah, we all must improve our time for a revolution skill. Yeah, heat of confrontation is just a war will. Come on, stop the violence. Get them hands together. There's a case of the other. Stop the violence. I was brave enough to try. Stop the violence. Come on. Oh, it's gonna make trouble. Oh, yeah. Stop the violence. Please, for peace, for peace. Stop the violence. Come on, come on. It ain't hard to do it. Stop the violence. Come on, come on, come on. Stop the violence.
On Friday night, I met Father Roy, and he agreed to do an interview with me on Sunday afternoon. We eventually caught up to him, but something a little more pressing grabbed our attention.
How do you not see her?
Crossing the line. Exclusive. She's crossing.
Hey, look, I'll be right with you.
Okay, we'll be right here.
Are they crossing over?
Yeah.
Okay, 1, 2, and 3.
Okay.
That's good.
Yeah, they're going over right there.
Yeah! There she goes. Just a few minutes later, I got to ask Father Roy a couple of questions.
I guess I'll start off with asking, when you first started this protest with only 10 people, did you ever imagine that it would amount to over 20,000?
Never, never. We had no vision, no plan, no thought of starting any kind of a movement. We were here, 10 of us. Some of us had just returned from Latin America and knew firsthand the brutality of the militaries of some of these countries. And when we heard about this school, we gathered in the name of peace. We gathered to keep alive the memory of many of the victims, sisters and brothers whose voices were taken away by graduates of the school. And what happened was, in the first year we crossed the line, 3 of us went to prison. There was no movement, but people just came forward to volunteer. They moved into my little apartment here when I went to prison. And little by little, the next year we had 100, and then 500. People started to come here. And the movement somehow blossomed. Word began to spread around the country about this school that was hiding before behind this wall of secrecy. And what we learned was that in our country was a school of assassins, a school of dictators, all carried out in our name with our money, tax money. And so, it's just a great joy today to see, 22,000.
Do you think, as of this year, we're closer than we ever have been?
Oh, without a doubt. We're getting there. We're getting this. I think this coming year could be our year to shut it down. We've got a bill in Congress. With the changes in Congress, we're very hopeful. A recent bill of ours lost by 15 votes.
Right.
35 who opposed that bill have been kicked out of Congress. So with these newcomers, we believe that we can get the 15 votes that we'll need to shut it down. We also have the Latin American strategy. We visited all these countries in Latin America with soldiers here. And after meeting with defense ministers, presidents, university leaders, and others, we were able to get Venezuela, Argentina, and Uruguay to pull out their troops. We're going to be going this coming year to 10 other countries. With a school without students, got to shut down.
Who has been the most helpful in your efforts to close down the School of the America? Has there been a specific organization?
Well, I'll tell you, what happened, I would say 7 years ago, the college and university students started to come into the movement. And right now, I would say over half of those gathered, 22,000, are college and university students and high school students.
Yeah.
The students have become the backbone of our movement.
Are you proud of the fact that students have become?
No doubt. I mean, for me, for us, it's such hope. I mean, this gives us, because as we age, I mean, we want to pass the baton on to others who will continue the struggle as they do in Latin America. Generations pass that baton on to others, the youth of their countries. And this is what we see here. And it's so encouraging to see all the students here again, high school and college students, who are learning about foreign policy, I mean, who are really introduced to Latin America through the school, who come to learn about foreign policy and what our country is doing, not only in Latin America, but in Iraq and other countries. I mean, this in a way is sort of an introduction to activism.
Why is it important for students to take on this role? Why is the SOA a focal part of the peace movement?
Well, I think it's, it's very important. It's focal because of the amount of suffering and death this school and its graduates cause to others. Well-known martyrs, we know about Bishop Oscar Romero, the 6 Jesuits in El Salvador, and the 4 churchmen and others, but, there are tens of thousands more campesinos, human rights activists, university leaders, labor leaders in Colombia, tin miners in Bolivia. And it's just so important that, first of all, that the truth be known, that we as North Americans know what our country has done in our name and continues to do. Our greatest enemy in this country is ignorance. It's not out there, it's within our borders. Ignorance. That's the greatest enemy. There's so little we know about our foreign policy in Latin America, in Iraq, and other countries. We don't know about other cultures and their histories. That ignorance gets us in big trouble. And this school, I think, is a teachable moment. Early on, when the movement began to take root and blossom, we knew how important it was to have as our tactic to close the school of violence, that our way would be the way of nonviolence. And so we drew on the wisdom and the experience of Mahatma Gandhi and Dr. Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, Cesar Chavez, Dorothy Day, and Bishop Oscar Romero, and others. Their way, the way of nonviolence, was going to be our way. And that's why we're here, peace in the name of nonviolence.
Okay. Then I'd just like to say to you, that is because of the SOA protest that I was brought into. This is my first lesson in foreign policy. And I'm a huge political news junkie kind of kid. I love following up on stuff, and I got to credit a lot of it to the SOA protest.
Right here, look, thank you.
This was quite a memorable moment for me. Not only did I get to conduct my first interview, but I was able to meet someone who I believe is nothing short of a hero.
And we are going to ask, of course, what do we do now? What do we do? We've worked so hard to shut down the school. Where do we go? What do we do? Well, in my little apartment there, I've got that plaque. someone gave me in the early days. And that little plaque reads, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall never be unemployed." Thank you. I just wish you well. Thank you so much. We want to thank you for coming from all over the country, all over the world. We love you. You're wonderful. Thank you very much.
Close the SOA.
Close the SOA.
Close the SOA.
Shadows fall from you. Learn to watch your step. You come falling.
Close the SOA.
Heart again. You will break like a butterfly. The walls are talking.